Hey, my name is Ray Belcher, CEO of GHS Energy out of Midland, Texas, and I'm super excited to be on the Catwalk podcast.
The Catwalk is proud to partner with Second Story Co-working and to record inside the Second Story studio in downtown Midland. Second Story Co-working provides fully furnished offices, open workspace, and multiple conference rooms for your business. Consider Second Story Co-working today. Check them out at secondstory.co. We're premium space with flexible agreements. If you tell good stories and let people into your process, they will connect with you beyond just buying what you are selling. Choose the Catwalk Media Group, where good storytelling will set you apart. Check us out at catwalkmediagroup.com. Well, we are so excited for you joining with us on another episode of the Catwalk. I'm joined, as always, across the room from the great Chris Stegall on the controls. I'm your host, Jay Whitlow, and I'm so excited today to welcome my special guest into the studio and to the Catwalk, Ray Belcher. What's up, Ray?
What's up, Jay? Good to be here, man.
We should not be talking this close to each other because of what happened this weekend with Arsenal.
I've got no complaints. No complaints.
So let's just go ahead and jump into it. Tottenham was unfairly given 8 or so, or I guess it was both teams, all the yellow cards, but it was a very heavy influence game, kind of like the Chiefs and Bengals.
Oh, geez.
Right? What's your take on that?
Well, Tottenham had 5 yellow cards. Arsenal had 3 that were not real justified, but it was a great game and big-time Arsenal fan, and I love that you're a Tottenham fan because I've only got a couple other guys here in Midland that I get to send texts to every weekend that we get to, only twice a year unless it's a cup game or something. But
yeah, I didn't get any texts from you.
Well, right, so. I failed to recognize that I've actually seen, because you have some Tottenham gear and sweatshirts and hats and stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I do.
So nobody's perfect, but it's one of those things.
We all have our sins.
That's right.
Right.
So.
But I want to dive into something a little bit deeper because this fascinates me. You, maybe once or twice a year, I don't know, kind of tell us about this before our guests get to know who you are. You pull off some Billy Crystalisms, right? And you do a little city slicker work.
Nailed it.
So are you Jack Palance? Are you Billy Crystal? Walk me down that road.
Probably a combination of all of the 3 idiots in that movie. But so I've got a buddy that he manages, I don't know how much, 20, 30,000 acres up around Steamboat. And the company that brought me to Midland was a company called Sandex and Voyager Energy, and they're kind of family friends, and we were in North Dakota and Wyoming kind of working, and all of a sudden we ended up on this ranch in Walden, Colorado, and I was like, this is the best time of my life, and you're horseback a bunch, and they're basically the cattle are running around in the aspens and up in the mountains, and you go get them out of them and get them down in pastures. They're a little easier to handle, and then on shipping morning, 2, 3, 5, 6 semi trucks show up to get them, and we ship them. And every year until this year is a big year for me, Jay, because every year until this year I'm the guy on the ground kind of operating gates or staying out of the way. And this year during shipping I got to stay horseback, which was I like to think was a promotion for me. But the truth of the matter is that they were probably out of options, and so I just got to. But I'm a team roper. I'm not a cowboy. I'm really not even a good team roper. So, getting around guys that do it for a living, like any industry or anything that where you get around guys that are truly professionals and good at what they do, man, it's impressive. So, it's
team roping.
Yeah, it's this.
Tell me about roping.
Okay, so
what's the fastest you roped any?
Oh, I don't know.
Any calves?
No, steers, but it's I don't know. Honestly, probably maybe 6 or 7 seconds. And
really?
in the NFR, they're 3 and 4 seconds. So it's there's a distinct difference in the guys that play at it and the guys that do it.
Did you ever do rodeo work?
I didn't, no. So I grew up My mama raised me. She was a single mom and remarried as I was a teenager. But we didn't have a ton growing up. But I had a horse, and so I was around him all the time and got to ride a bunch. Never really learned the right way to do any of it, and found myself as an adult here in Midland and was working a ton and just looked up and like didn't have a ton to really be excited about or work towards that was not work or family or kids or, that seasonal life where just kind of, I don't know, midlife crisis or something. But I went to my wife, Lacey. Yeah, I went to my wife, Lacey, and I was like, babe, I don't do anything. I don't play golf. I don't really get to hunt anymore. Like, I want to do something. And she's like, what do you want to do? And I said, I'd like to team rope. She's like, so go team rope. And so we went all in and bought a couple horses and got a few lessons, and the rest is history. So
Now, would you prefer a cowboy hat or a baseball cap?
Oh, cowboy hat for sure. Yeah.
Hands down, right?
Yeah, that's right. Unless you're driving, then it goes up on the dash because it's not super fun to
So
have
you
that.
really were city slicker.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm not completely helpless on a horse, but I'm not those guys. So,
You're not those
yeah,
guys.
they make you look pretty silly.
Well, you are from Oklahoma,
Yes, sir.
right? And I think in your bio you said you miss your Oklahomies,
Yeah, that's
Oklahomies or something like that.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
if you're from Massachusetts, would you be a Mahomie?
yeah, no, because then they would think you were. Well, I know we're in West Texas, and Mahomes is a big deal.
That is a big
Out
deal
of
here,
Tech,
yeah.
But that's a term that Lacey and I framed whenever we got here, and probably didn't create it, but it's a endearing term that we refer to our people back in Oklahoma for sure.
Is Oklahomies.
That's it.
The only funny word I've heard with Oklahoma was when I went to Southwest Airlines one time, and they had a billboard up that says Oklahoma and back homa.
That's good.
And that was great marketing
that
tool. That's
is.
when I really was like, hey, this marketing thing could work. I wish I would have come up with something like that.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, you're from Oklahoma, so just kind of walk us through a little bit about your background, and I know you've kind of bounced around some. I know you were in upstate New York at some point.
We were, yeah.
Got to talk about that. So get me to Midland.
Yeah, so that's a long story. Born in Stillwater, Oklahoma. We like to say that there's two good schools in Oklahoma, Sunday School and Oklahoma State University. We don't
Watch it now.
we don't acknowledge the other one up there in Norman. But no, born in Stillwater, went to high school in Tulsa. As my mom remarried and graduated from Metro Christian up there, and ended up going to school in Shawnee, Oklahoma, at a little private NAIA school, St. Gregory's University, and played soccer there for 4.5 years. I was a December graduate, but and when I say play, I mean like at my recruiting visit, coach saw I had a pickup, and they're like, yeah. He can carry the water for us every other day or something. So weaseled my way onto the team, and really was a great learning experience, and loved the game, and got to continue playing it, and it helped pay for my school. And so that was a great thing. My sophomore year, I met my wife, Lacey. She was going to community college at the time, and ended up going to UCO there in Edmond. And so we were about an hour and 15 minutes apart. We would typically drive and go to the aforementioned school that I don't like to reference, but had some buddies in Norman, and we would meet up and get to see each other, and then or we would go to church Sunday morning. Life Church was a big part of our life, and we had a phenomenal group of people there, which was really fun, and decided to get married in 05, and we have obviously been married ever since. We got 4 kids, and that was her idea, not mine every time, but it's one of those things where you gotta
Sure it was.
work. Yeah, that's right. No, great kids, and better than I deserve for sure. She makes being a mama look pretty easy, and I've worked a ton over the years, and just kind of by the nature of the way that I'm wired, have had to figure out that whole work-life balance thing. And while she was at the house, kind of holding it down and really making it look pretty effortless. But after we got married, I graduated with an accounting degree. I didn't know what I wanted to do in life, still don't, but it was one of those things where I knew if you wanted to be a lawyer or you wanted to be a CPA, you needed to have kind of specific degrees for that part. And so got an accounting degree. My stepdad was CPA. He was a pretty smart dude, or is a pretty smart dude. He's still around, thankfully. So, went the accounting route. got out of school, was a banker of all things, and worked for a couple of different banks doing mortgages. Back then, if you had a 720 credit score, you could tell me what you made, tell me what you had in the bank. I didn't have to verify anything. So make no mistake about it, I was a problem and a part of the real estate bubble. So it was absolutely why those loans existed and part of the problem. But it was I learned a ton, really developed kind of a fundamental sales skill set that you kind of get used to saying no. I didn't always have this gray hair in my beard, and so I had a baby face and was constantly selling people their biggest purchase of their life, and trying to talk them into doing business with me. I told people I was 30 about 5 years before I was, just to try and gain a little bit of, yeah. So, one of those things that it was really fun, and it was a straight commission gig, so you had to hustle, and figure some stuff out. In the middle of that was doing some loans for some builders, some home builders that it's like, man, that guy is a great dude, but he's nothing special. I bet I could do this. And so kind of started dabbling in home building business. And I don't know, a few years into being a banker, I decided I would kind of make the jump and try to build houses myself. And I was in my 20s. We were beginning to start our family. And really it was a season of just a ton of fun. I mean, like a bunch of fun for me. Learning, and kind of one of those things where you find yourself in over your head pretty consistently, and surrounding yourself with good people bails you out. Except at that point in life, I was kind of taking some subconscious credit, I don't know if you've ever done that or not, but one of those things that I just kind of started believing my own hype, and wasn't doing anything just cardinal sin wrong, but from a fundamental business acumen 101, but was kind of easing down a path that wasn't real healthy. I hired some guys. One of them was the son of my college coach, Dwayne Cummings, still one of my mentors to this day. Great author, great speaker, phenomenal human. But moved his son from Georgia to Oklahoma, which they were from Oklahoma originally. But he was working for me, and had hired a guy that just wasn't a great hire. And in retrospect, there's some things I should have done differently, but looked up one day, and my wife had no clue of the situation we were in. I very compartmentalized, didn't share a ton about work relative to home life, just kind of left it at the door. And really I was kind of going down this path of just ignoring the obvious. Kind of looking back now, if I was consulting that guy, I'd be like, dude, you are an idiot. Don't do what you're doing. But
How old are you at the time?
27, 28, 29. Yeah. And so really just kind of, and had some really good people around me, some phenomenal mentors, and but just looked up and found myself in a place that wasn't great. If I'm building Chris's house and your house, and you pay me for your concrete bill, you expect me to pay your concrete bill. And really what I was doing was you were paying my business, and I might have paid my insurance bill, or I might have paid Chris's framing bill, or, it's just revenue to the business, and I was doling it out. And folks, and keep in mind, we're in a town of 3,500 people or whatever at the time. And anyway, long story short, I just got spread too thin. People got concerned that their bills weren't being paid, which they were right, because I had 30-day terms or whatever with my vendors, and just kind of business stuff. But again, you pay me, you expect me to pay your bill. You're not going to rely on my business to pay your bill, And so anyway, had 11 projects going on a Tuesday morning. And that Tuesday afternoon, I'd won, and everybody had kind of bailed on me and said we're not comfortable. And in retrospect, as a 43-year-old dude, I can appreciate where they were coming from. I would have loved to have a few more conversations and found my way out of it. But honestly, it really reshaped the trajectory of my life. And so one of those things that you can't be too mad at. Just a really, extremely painful lesson. I went to church with these people. I was coaching their kids. Everybody that worked for me that I owed money to. The day I shut my business, I owed a bunch of money to across 11 projects. It's not my AP list was significant. And so I was doing the books kind of as a side hustle deal for a buddy of mine that Mark Snodgrass. He had a flowback company. He and Brian Austin, and it was Eric Flowback Services, and just great little company startup, and literally two guys that I mean, they are the American dream. Started out of nothing, and just two country boys that desperately wanted to win, and figured out a way to do it. I was doing the books for them at the time, and which is ironic since I couldn't manage my own. But it was one of those things that I called him and I said, "Hey, man, like, I cut payroll checks for these guys every week. I know they make a bunch of money. I need to make a bunch of money. I owe money to people I care about, and I'm not going to file bankruptcy on them. Like, I need to make this right." And I'd like to give Mark credit, but really it was his wife, Angie, that said okay to Mark's idea. That was, "Hey, we'll pay off your stuff. Come work for me, and you can pay me back," which is totally crazy and ludicrous, at the time. That was 2009, 2010. And so he was in New York. He said, "I want to get back to Oklahoma." And then upstate New York was where they lived, but kind of covered the Marcellus, which was Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia. Really, that kind of was later, but Utica, they thought they were going to find a big liquid window up there, and it ended up not happening, but still a pretty viable play. But anyway, he moved me up there, and I was going to go in the field. And so I'm not just, I mean, you put a sledgehammer in my hands, and that's a 100% chance we're going to have an OSHA recordable by the end of the week by breaking my shin or smacking your finger or something, And so I was in the field for a couple of months. We had some tickets that hadn't been signed. Tickets are what we get paid off of, so require a signature. You submit to the customer, and they pay you off of that. And we couldn't get them signed. And so I'd heard the conversation. I was like, "Man, I'm happy to go in and try to make friends with this guy." And he's like, "Man, give it your best shot." And so I don't remember, it was a significant amount of money, went in and tried to get it figured out, and made friends with a guy, and came out with a bunch of signed invoices or signed tickets, and allowed us to invoice off of them. And Mark said, "Hey, you've got a new job." So I got out of the field. So my oil field career consists of maybe 60 days in the field, and the rest of it has been building relationships and kind of increasing business acumen and trying to figure stuff out along the way. But so that was the beginning of my oil field career. We were in New York at this time, and I don't know, maybe 18 months into that time frame, Ohio started to kick off. Like I said, they thought it was going to be a big, liquid play, and it was going to be the new thing. And it's a great play, and a lot of people have made a lot of money off of it. But I started covering that kind of 3-state window of West Virginia, Ohio, PA. At the same time, we found we were pregnant with our third kiddo. My response was not very wholesome. We're a family show, so I'll save my response. But
put a pin there. We'll come back to that.
Yeah, there you go. But I would leave Horseheads about 4 in the morning. Would drive to Pittsburgh, which is about a 5.5 hour drive. Be there in time for 11:30, 12 o'clock lunch meeting. Maybe see somebody else. Make my way over to Canton, Ohio, which is a couple hour drive, and then make my way back to Horseheads, which was a 5 or 6 hour drive. And I'd do that loop 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, usually. So that I was there in my bed, that night, and I was home that night. But man, it was a lot of driving. But at the time, it made sense because the opportunity was there. There wasn't a ton. It wasn't very bloody water. There wasn't a ton of competition up there at the time, and if they were, we knew them, and so we were able to go compete. And man, it was a busy time. And I look back and I think about what we did. And I say we intentionally, like not just me, but like what the group of guys up there, man, it's pretty dang special. And we won. We really got a foothold, and were able to experience some success, which for me on the tail end of failing at my own business was pretty important for it was like every once in a while God kind of gives you those nuggets or those little moments of encouragement. Where you look up and you're like, okay, I don't completely suck as a human or, businessman or, yeah, that's right. So it was really incremental improvement that helped rebuild my confidence, just kind of in life, but also in our industry. Gave me some wins and allowed us to. I was promoted a couple of times and allowed me to kind of step into that new space where remembered what I was kind of good at. In 2012, went to Mark and said, hey, I'd like to move back to Oklahoma. I'm traveling to South Texas and West Texas and Oklahoma at this point. So I'm like, hey, I can travel from anywhere. Would love to get my wife and kids back around family and friends. And he said, okay. And I think that was like on a, Wednesday night and Thursday morning, we had it announced on Facebook, which was not really his plan, which I learned some things about delivery in that process. But we got back home in June of 2012. And moved back to Edmond, which Edmond was Lacey's from Kingfisher. I was Stillwater and Tulsa, and so it was kind of a good place in the middle. We had kind of church people there, and so it allowed us to kind of find community pretty quickly. I was covering the whole country for EFS, and we were building the thing like crazy, and had a ridiculously good team. Had gotten a hold of Dwayne, which was my college coach, for some just mentorship and kind of consulting help on the sales front. At this time, I was VP or something of this business development, and was kind of covering the whole country and covering a big swath and trying to build a team, and was out of my depth again. And Dwayne helped me kind of get me up to speed. We brought him on to help us. We were trying to get acquired, kind of subtly, not so subtly. We weren't marketing ourselves, but if somebody came along, we were definitely for sale, and so ended up selling in 2014, and life was good. We had I had Mark and Brian had given me a little bitty equity position in the company, and on a 9-figure transaction, it quantified to something meaningful, and so got a little bit of cash, got a bunch of stock that was going to be pretty fun down the road. And ultimately, the company that acquired us went bankrupt. They had some kind of intercompany stuff, and so I had spent my check that I had gotten, paid off debt, and got some fun stuff, and I had all this stock that was waiting in the wings on me, and it goes to zero, and so it was a significant setback, for us, and was frustrated with the oil field, was frustrated with the company that acquired us, some good dudes in that company, and have lifelong friends that I talk to once a week. A couple of them here in Midland, ironically, independently of anything else. We all ended up here. That's where all the cool kids come hang out, I think. But, had looked up, and life was not the way that I thought it was going to be just 18 months prior, and so another one of those kind of situations where I had, had an idea and kind of had my own plans, and they just didn't come to fruition. And so at the same time, like as I mentioned, I was raised by my mom, came from a, divided family, and I was always tight with my dad, would go every couple of weeks, go down and see him and hang out in the summers, and good man, just my mom raised me, and so we got a little tighter as became an adult, and he came to me with an idea of a business opportunity, and I had a couple of tax returns that looked pretty good after the acquisition, and a little bit of liquidity, and so we decided to kind of partner up on a family business idea. And Dave Ramsey says to not ever do business with family.
I say that.
Yeah.
I didn't listen.
I didn't either. And he's got lots of money in the bank and reasons why that we should listen to him. But one of those things where it was good for a minute, and I think it could have been really good. And long story short, we got a little sideways on things and saw the world pretty differently, and ultimately ended up costing me a relationship with my dad, and we've kind of kissed and made up, moved forward, and all that. But it's like that business wasn't going to be viable for the two of us to be involved, and so I kind of stepped out and found myself in a spot where I never thought I was going to work for anybody else again, and I was going to be my own man and my own business, and looked up and was in a place that like I never dreamed I was going to be. And so just when I say painful, like I really can't communicate it well enough to it was complete start over, and really relationally was very, very tough. And so just I had made friends on the front side of being in the oil and gas industry, and I called one of them, Jared Thompson, and he's with Sandex Voyager, the company that brought me down here, and I said, JD, I need a job, man. And he and his dad, Bruce, they gave me one. And when I needed it, they definitely extended a hand, and I brought value and all the things about. I like to think they got a good return on their investment, but the fact is, like, I needed some help, and they gave it to me, and he knew my whole story, and they're a father-son business, and so he had a little empathy for me, I think.
And that's the one that's here in Midland?
That's it. Well, so they're out of Granbury, but yeah, they've got an office here in Midland, and man, that's a whole other story of as far as what we encountered when we got out here. But I mean, I'm back in the oil field whenever I swore up and down, and coming on the heels of kind of the experience I'd had after we got acquired, and all the things that kind of went along with that. I jumped to another company in between that ultimately fired me because it was that I was kind of over M&A, and ended up, when I left EFS, it was some real hurt feelings, and so we were trying to buy EFS, and I was thinking I was going to be able to help there, and it was too many burned bridges and just messy, and I'm buddies with Mark and Brian today. I'm proud to say, testament to both of them, and but today it's really interesting to see, how you kind of line things up, and really I made that jump from EFS to a company called Falcon. They've been acquired 2 or 3 times since then, and those guys are some of the best dudes on the planet. I mean, just phenomenal humans. But when I left EFS, it was really out of one conversation with Mark, and we kind of got in a pretty significant argument, and I made a life-changing decision from a prideful place that came from a place of arrogance, and I had done all these things, and I had forgotten the lesson that I had learned so painfully 4 or 5 years prior, and it's one of those things, like, it's just, I don't know, God works in funny ways, but it's a situation where I had, things had not gone according to my plan, and it cost me some pretty significant relationships at the time, and went over to be over kind of M&A stuff and development for Falcon, and it wasn't working, and they were private equity owned, and it was a market that was tired. It was tough to acquire some folks, and it's like, dude, we're paying you a lot of money to be the boss of something, and there's really nothing for you to be the boss of, so you got to go, and I was like, I don't blame you, and that was actually whenever I had jumped into the next thing with JD, so it was a situation where when I was working for JD and Sandex, I was still living in Edmond and was kind of all over the place. I still had connections in the Northeast. Had really connections all over the country, and was leveraging as many of those as I could from a sales perspective, and developing stuff, and kind of found my way into some other parts of the business, which was really good for me. It's always fun to learn lessons on somebody else's dime, rather than your own business. It's usually less painful, and they're where they are because they're probably a little bit better at it than you are. And so I was able to kind of learn and step into some spots that probably didn't have any business being in at the time, and kind of grew just from a business development standpoint, hand over fist pretty quickly. Found myself, all of them are pilots, and they've got a couple airplanes, and JD would come get me in Edmond or Guthrie on a Monday, or fly me to Midland on and come get me on Thursday or Friday, and so I was away from home a lot. And we were just really the Permian was where you wanted to be, and we weren't having a ton of success. And so I spent 13 weeks in a row. Spent my anniversary out here, spent my birthday out here, July 4th out here. And so it was one of those things where Lace and I were on vacation. We finally got away, and JD texted me, said, hey, I think you ought to move to Midland, and here's the package that we'd do. And it was significant. And I asked him, I was like, man, I'm super thankful. Like, why'd you offer that? And he said, man, I was spending a lot more money in Jet A fuel than I would be paying you just to move you here. And it was less headache for everybody and all the things. And so, we moved to Midland in September. Lace likes to remind me that it was on her birthday. So it was 2018, probably to this weekend, because her birthday was yesterday. She turned 39 for the third or fourth time. I don't remember, but no, it was actually second. But and so it's one of those things where we were here, and really had to kind of revamp the yard out here. And I'm a sales guy up to this point, and I'm in ops now, so my phone's ringing at 2 in the morning or, whenever, and it was good for me. It allowed me to have empathy for the guys that are actually doing the work to make you the money, and it's easy to, as a salesman, to go out and write a check that you don't have to cash, and so it really was. I made some lifelong friends that I'm buddies with to this day, and it was really, really hard, and we got it figured out and got it turned around, and it was good. So during COVID, kind of made some changes operationally or kind of from a big picture perspective of the company. Sandex parted ways with me, and I went to a company called Intercorp in 2020. Phenomenal company. They're a competitor in my space today, but some of my best buddies still work over there. James Pung was CEO. He was a friend of mine that I had actually, whenever I was in New York, we had run into each other. He doesn't remember the conversation because I'm a lot bigger, or he's a lot bigger deal to me than I am to him. But we met at a trade show, and we were everywhere I went as a sales guy, I saw. He was working for a company called Tetra, a big company, and he was working for them at the time. And everywhere I went, I saw James Pong and Tetra, and I like to think that a few places he went, he saw my name and EFS, and I saw him at a trade show, and I saw his, you've got to wear these badges to let you into different parts or whatever, and I saw his name, and I was like, "You're freaking James Pong?" And he's like, "You're Ray Belcher?" And I said, "Yeah." And so we'd been a pain in each other's neck for a couple of years. That we said, "Hey, let's go get a drink and get to know you a little bit." So we got to visit, and from then on, I was like, "That's a good dude." And then in the time frame that all that stuff happened with me, he had gone on to Intercorp, and when I had gotten let go from Sandex, James was my first phone call. And he didn't have anything at the time and didn't work out. And so I was, trying to find, during COVID, we had negative oil 4 months prior, and not a lot of optimism in the industry in general. And so as the world's kind of coming back to life, James calls me and he's like, "Hey man, I'm going to be in town." And I'd accepted a job with another company that Friday. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to be in town on Tuesday." I was like, "Man, is this a work thing? Like, I'm literally, like, I accepted a job this weekend. Like, I can't, He's like, "No, I just want you to meet these guys, whatever." Well, so we went to dinner and caught up. And really it was just very kind of like this, just catching up and talking about what's important to you and what you're doing and what the next step is. And that night, that was a Tuesday, I was going to rope Wednesday morning, and so I was leaving, like literally my alarm was set for 3:30 in the morning to, get horses loaded and head to Weatherford. And he calls me after dinner, and he's like, "Hey, you want to go get a drink somewhere?" And I was like, "No, like I'm getting up early, like I got to go to bed." And he's like, "Well, can we come to the house? We want to talk." And so anyway, long story short, we ended up getting a deal figured out. They offered me a position, and I came on board, director of Permian operations there, and man, it was just again a ton of fun, pretty big company, and so bigger than what I'd been dealing with, kind of mom and pop business, which I love. Like, I have a real soft spot for guys that just put it all on the line and try to go make it, and Intercorp is private equity backed, and so they've got a different set of rules they play by, and so, man, it stretched me pretty quickly, and it made me get good at some stuff that I'd kind of made some assumptions on. Super thankful for that time, and James was critical in that. Eric Omenson was my boss at the time. He was a great guy and is a great guy. Mark Freeman, Gareth Young. Gareth is one of my best buddies to this day, and he's a competitor, and I call him, I don't know, a couple times a week, pick his brain on this or that. We don't talk a ton of shop just by the nature of what we both do for a living, but just good people, and it's just, when I look back, I wouldn't have designed any of it, but you look back and you just find yourself super thankful for the way that things kind of go, and majority of it's painful, and like I would not pick it to go this way, but at the end of the day, you're thankful for it, and you learn a bunch from it, and you hopefully stack those kind of little wins on top of each other, and they end up being something pretty meaningful. So in the fall of, I guess, last year, so 23, I had met a guy named Marty Meisner that he was a customer of mine when I was at Sandex. So back in 2018, 2019, one of the first guys that I kind of got connected with when I was moving back or flying back and forth to Midland. And our first interaction was we screwed up, and I went out there and kind of took my chewing and had to make things right, and we did and got things fixed, but just communicated really well and tried to make sure that we didn't we could salvage the relationship by owning it and doing whatever we could to make things right. And so Marty and I just kind of became buddies, and we'd have lunch here and there and whatever. Well, last fall he had come to me with he's like, hey, let's grab lunch, and I did, and it was just kind of very there was no job offer, no nothing. It was just kind of like, hey, here's what we're dealing with in our business, and I kind of gave him some thoughts on what you might be open for and or what you might open yourself for from a liability standpoint and from a just classification of the guys that were doing their work and just things that I had been a part of and litigation and all these things that like painful lessons you learn along the way. And so anyway, after the first of the year, he called me back. He's like, hey, we need to have lunch again. I said, all right. And so we went to Cowboy Prime, which was a great place here locally.
Shout out.
100%. Yeah, was there yesterday for Lacey's birthday. So Midland's got a lot of great places to eat. You can eat like anything you want to here in Midland for a couple weeks straight and not have a repeat. So big fan of our scene here. But we were at Cowboy Prime, and he kind of pitched me with the idea of coming to work for him. And he's like, man, the stuff we talked about, we kind of looked into, you're right. I don't really want to work as hard as what it's going to take to, and I say that tongue in cheek. He's one of the hardest working dudes I know and deserving of everything he's got. But he said, Jared Tindall and I are two principals of the business, and we would like to, have you maybe come over and have you run this thing. And I just said, man, like everybody I've hired at Intercorp are guys that I trust with my life and just phenomenal, good dudes. And life is pretty easy. We kind of got things the way we want it. And he's like, well, I'd like for you to think about it, pray about it. And he was going out of town for a couple of weeks, and he said, I'll hit you up when I come back and see what you think. I said, all right. And so the part of that story I like to tell is he forgot his wallet. And so
You had to pay?
100%. The place where he offered me to come over and maybe be part of the team, he did the I forgot my wallet trick. So
yeah, it's a good trick.
It was, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna steal it back. I mean, to be fair, he pays for my lunch a lot now. So anyway, gave it a couple weeks, and when I say like I was happy and content, I mean, use that word intentionally, which is pretty hard for me, but I was in a good place, but talked about it, prayed about it, and just felt like, it was time to take the next step, and tried to figure out a way to leave well and not burn every bridge that people I cared about over there, and set them up for as much success as you can, which is really a whole separate topic. The idea of leaving a company well is a challenge, and I didn't nail it, but tried pretty hard to get it right, and saw Gareth mentioned one of my buddies. He preached at his home church in Houston. He preaches a couple times a year, and he preached on Labor Day weekend a couple weeks back when I was coming back from being a city slicker. Yeah. And I stayed over Saturday night in Houston and got to listen to him deliver the word, and he nailed it as usual. He's a great communicator, but got to see James and Gerardo, or one of our international guys, or one of Intercorp's international guys, still say are. It's a Freudian slip there, but, good guys, and just, really tried hard to leave well, and it's a challenging thing to do, but felt like we did it as well as we could. Got over to GHS, and that's where we are now. And so, man, it's we don't it's not on our website or something, but GHS stands for Grace Holy Spirit. And it's a company where we absolutely try to lead with kind of fundamental Christian principles in mind, and we want to win. We're not a win at all cost. We're not going to lie, cheat, and steal to do it, but we dang sure want to win, and I've been around some studs. I mean, everywhere I've been professionally has been around some of the best guys in our industry. And everybody says that. They think their team's awesome, but when you get squeezed, what really comes out tells the truth. And I was in it with all those guys at every stop, and always liked what came out, you know. And so it's one of those things where I had high expectations going into this, and you know, been pretty intentional with trying to build culture and build something that you can be proud of. And man, it was already there. And all I'm trying to do is not screw it up. Mark McCoy is our VP of operations, and he's one of those weird dudes that you can just hold the phone up to a test unit on location and he can kind of diagnose it over the phone, like knows all there is to know operationally about what we do, which, as I mentioned, my field career consists of about 60 days.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm not that guy. And I can flat run a business, and I'm good at what I know I'm good at, but I know what I'm not good at, and I try to surround myself with that team and that circle that is going to protect me and protect the company. And man, I've got a good one. Jared and Marty are about two good guys as they are to work for, and like I said, Mark's just a flat-out stud that is good too. And then from the field soups and down, we've added structure and kind of layers of leadership to relieve some burden on Mark. When I got there, he was doing everything. Didn't know which day it was or what day it was or which way was up, but was getting it all handled, and tried to alleviate some of that.
And GHS is where you're at right now.
That's right, yeah.
Right? And I wanted you to share that whole journey from the start, because what I really wanted to learn from that and for people to hear and see, you have not done that traditional journey, right? That not, hey, I went to college, I got that job, and I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people have. Sure. And I really appreciate you sharing that journey of, you know, I was kind of like on the edge of my seat going, okay, so this one's the one that's going to work, right? It didn't work. This one's the one that's going to work, and it didn't. This one's the one, and it just kept going and going and going. And when you got to the part about your family, it crushes me that work and business had to get in the way of family. Yeah. And I don't want to go down that road, because I was at that place where I worked for the family, and Dave Ramsey said, don't do that. But what I want to hear from you right now is just tell me, what was the one thing out of all, you failed this business, you owed people's money, that's got to be embarrassing. Sure. Lacey stayed with you, hung in there with you. I mean, we could go all day talking about all those, but give me one specific thing that you learned about Ray that maybe it's the common denominator in all of them. Sure. What's that one thing Ray learned?
You know, that's a really good question. I would say you really can't fake humility. You know, like I grew up in church. I was around really good guys. I know what it's like to be a good teammate. I know what it's like to win and lose and all the things. So I know when you ask me something like academically, I know what I should tell you. You know what I mean? Like, I know what you're going to want to hear. I know the politically correct answer. I know all that. And so for a chunk of my life, professional life, like, I would say that stuff and not really mean it, or not, even if I wanted to mean it, like in my heart of hearts, I wouldn't mean it. And so, like, you just cannot fake that piece of it. And so, you know, pride's a dangerous thing. Pride before the fall, you know, however you want to put it. But for me, I was saying those things, and I really wasn't, I didn't believe them, you know. And so I would think, it wasn't a victim mentality completely, but there was a lot of that, you know. And it was easy to blame somebody else for, you know, kind of bringing my business to the carpet and, you know, bringing things to a head before. Well, all it really was delaying the inevitable. Like, knowing what I know about business today, I can tell you very quickly. You give me the P&L of your business, I can tell you very quickly the 4 or 5 things that are KPIs that are going to drive your business to win or lose. Like, in business, you got to make more than you spend, and you got to do it strategically. Like, it's not difficult. We make it difficult, you know, because there's people involved and there's variables you can't control and whatever. But from my seat, like, I was only delaying the inevitable. And then whenever I was doing things with my family, like, it was one of those things where it really was never going to work. I just didn't see it, and I wanted to believe something that wasn't there. And honestly, I had an inflated opinion of my own ability to go impact change within, like that leopard's not changing his spots. You know what I mean? And so it's like there's certain things you're just not going to change. And so for me, I have today, as I sit today, if me, you, and Chris want to start a business, I know what I'm good at, and I'm going to turn you loose on what you're good at. I think the idea of being, Craig Rochelle says this, it's not an original thought, but the idea of kind of multitasking is a complete lie. Like fully exploiting somebody's strengths rather than marginally improving their weaknesses is 100% my strategy. I'm not trying to be all things to all people. I want to be good at what I'm good at, and I hand off, a lot. And it can be, misconstrued as you're trying to get out of work. That's not my heart at all. I want us to win. I don't care if I do it or you do it. I want to win. Whenever we cross that finish line, nobody says how. They just says how many, And so, I just want to win. And so what I've learned is you really can't fake that piece. You can kind of lean into it, and you can be out of your depth, and you can stretch and grow. That's all part of life. And if you find yourself there today, that's not a place that being uncomfortable is probably a healthy thing. I can tell you that there's been, 20 times in between now and February when I came to GHS that I felt out of my depth. Things I've thought I've known conceptually. And when it comes to practice, I need to get that attorney on the phone. I need to get that insurance agent on the phone. I need to get whoever. I need to get the expert, because what I think I know, I'm not willing to sign my name on and say I know, because if I get it wrong, it's meaningful. Everywhere I've been, there's been somebody above me that this is what I think, and I bounce it off of them, and then they say, yeah, that's a good call. Or so in your head, you start kind of believing I'm running this stuff. Well, you're really not. There's 2-3 layers above you.
Sure.
And if it all goes south, they're the guys that are ultimately culpable for it, not you. And so this is the first spot I've been, other than my own business that didn't go too well. This is the first spot that I've been that I've had to get it right. If you get it wrong, it costs people. So
when you owed people money, and you said you were in a small town, so people knew who you were, and you wanted to pay them back. You wanted to do what was right. Have you healed up from that?
Oh gosh, man, I don't know. I like to think so. No one says a word to me about it. There is a part of you that just, I think I'm a Christian, and so my belief system is such that I believe in good and evil. I believe in God and the devil. And I think the enemy, not everything is a spiritual attack. Sometimes you're just an idiot.
Sure.
But I believe that the enemy isolates, and he just throws lies to you that in the quiets, this morning, today, I had to take my lovely daughter Channing to cheer practice at 7. I'm usually at my desk by 6:15 or 6:30, feeding horses at 5:45 or 6, and then downtown by 6:15 or 6:30. Well, I had to wait and take her to practice, and so I'm awake at 5:15 like I normally am, and I'm just sitting there thinking, about all the things, and then and it's pitch black, and it's nighttime, still waiting on the sun to come up, and I'm sitting there thinking, and the stuff that's coming into my mind is not real healthy. I start questioning, all the things. So I have a solid foundation. My belief system is I know fundamentally what I believe is to be true and false. I have a wife that loves me. I have kids that think I hung the moon. I have a company that I'm a part of that trust me with everything in them, and that love me and I love them. I have a good support system, a church, all the things that you should feel good about. And I still have these thoughts. And so it's there's a part of you that's what's wrong with you? And the other part that's that's kind of normal, because anytime I give voice to it, the guy I'm sitting there talking to is me too, bro. And I don't want to, I'm kind of a fan of making your mess your message. So I tend to overshare. My wife loves it. I tend to try and make that whole process, if it's constructive to somebody else, then that's maybe why I went through it. And so I just talk. Obviously I've had, 2 20-minute monologues here that you haven't gotten to say much, but for me, I try to be transparent on that stuff.
I love that.
And when it comes down to it, saying it, talking about it or not talking about it is not going to change if it happened. And so if I can share with somebody, and for me, this is my personal belief, and not to get dark or anything else, but I think that by you sharing your story, if you think something, you say something. If you think something nice, I like your Tottenham blue shirt. That's a lie, but if I thought it and I wanted to say it, I would. But if you think something, say something, because that might be the only nice thing that person hears that day. And in the oil field, I mentioned isolation. I just think it is such a piece of what we deal with.
Yeah.
I think guys get on their own, and they get in their own little world, and they get isolated. And I think guys are out here that are going to make a decision to hurt themselves if we don't go get to them. And so trying to find a way to reach guys that no one else is reaching, and whether that's leveraging technology, whether that's organizing events, whatever it is, I have a massive burden for, loving on guys, because I've got everything going for me. If I give you my resume or my bio, you're like, that's a dude that has it going on. And I do. I'm super thankful. There's a lot to be happy about in my life. I'm still a guy that is flawed, and I have a history that, whenever I'm isolated and by myself, man, I start believing those lies. And so I have people in my life that are consistently speaking into me, and it's not like it's a, rah-rah all the time, but it's like, dude, you seem off. What's wrong with you? You had, a problem. You got an attitude 3 days in a row. I'm tired of it. What's your problem? If you don't have people that can speak like that to you, you need to expand your circle.
Well, I think you've heard a lot of our episodes.
Sure.
Because
Big fan of the catwalk, yeah.
My final 2 questions are always, who do you want to be known for, and who pours into you, and I think you've shared those throughout the entire time. So I just want to ask one more question before we wrap things up. Where are you and your family serving? Midland is a great city. I've had a guest on, I've had the mayor on, I've had a city councilman last week who said Midland cares, and I would assume you would agree with that. So briefly, tell me, where are you guys serving?
Yeah, so first of all, we're big fans of Midland, mostly because of the aesthetic beauty of it, Not really. It's not the best looking city in the planet, but there's nothing here. What I say is there's not a lot of here other than a lot of oil and a lot of phenomenal people. And we have found community and gone through some things, and man, people here with no agenda. It's not like here's my business card. If I can help you, let me know, and then you act like you're concerned. It's like, people are just good people, and once people feel like you're here. I'll be honest, whenever we were going back and forth, or when I was going back and forth, I never had success in my career. Professionally, selling, building relationships, people can tell, And once we moved here, it was instantly. It's like, hey, here's where we go to church. Here's where the boys need to play football. Here's where the girls need to go do dance. Here's my favorite coffee shop. And it is we're sitting here talking, and Chris is over there on the periphery, and Chris is like, hey, you need to know this dude. I mean, I've got not 50 stories like that, where, my circle has grown to no credit or fault of my own. It's just, good people.
Yeah.
To answer your question, we're members at Mid-Cities Church here in Midland. It has been a game changer for us. There are lots of good churches here in town, and they all, they're all made up of people that just want to get it right. I lead a men's kind of leadership group. We read a book. Sometimes it's secular, sometimes it's faith-based, but it is 100% designed to just build community and really just get guys together that are trying to get life right. We don't take ourselves too seriously, if we've got a virtual option and an in-person option, so we might only have 5 or 6 guys there locally. You have 15 or 20 that are calling on the link, which I love. I've got guys that work nights, and they're climbing into bed at 7 a.m. on a Friday as they're calling in to be a part of it. But it's this little community that we've started building, and man, I just wholeheartedly believe that guys need somewhere to kind of latch onto. You're never alone. You are never the first one to be going through what you're going through. You think you're the first one to experience whatever it is. It's just never, ever true. You're telling me in the history of mankind, you're the first one to go through what you're dealing with? It's just never true.
Yeah.
But how many times have you believed that? I've believed it.
You buy the lie.
Big time.
Yeah.
And I just don't think it's I think guys get picked off because they start believing that lie. They start believing they're less than. And they get off away from what they know to be true. And before you know it, you look up and you're in a place you don't love, and you have no idea how to get back from it. And then your wife or your significant other starts to see it, your kids start to see it. That reinforces what you already believe negative about yourself, because you just start this tailspin. And man, that's a dangerous place to be. And I think if you can speak into that dude, because I've freaking seen it. Like, I have seen it, where you get a hold of a guy, and all of a sudden he just has a little bit of a switch. And then all of a sudden the next week he calls in, and all of a sudden he, instead of listening and not saying anything, now he has something to say. And then in a month you can't shut him up. You're like, all right, Jay, we got to move on. We got to get to the next part of the chapter, whatever it is. Man, I'm just a massive believer in finding your community. It doesn't have to be anything formal, but you need to find somebody that can help you, because we all need it. Like, I do not, I do not believe that you're better alone. We're made to be, we're made for community. We're made to be
100%.
a part of something else. And so, and then, locally, there are so many good charities. And I will say this about Midland, too. It is a giving community. There's a lot of resources here. There are a lot of people with just big old hearts, and so we're a part of several different organizations where we get to contribute. And in fact, the week that I saw you most recently was our third fundraiser in a row. It was an expensive month, but it was the third fundraiser in a row where we're out supporting, and we have friends that end up being on the board or part of organizations, so they invite you, and they don't invite you to sit there and eat their free food and have a great time. So we try to contribute to what's near and dear to us, and for us that's kids. Our youngest we fostered and ended up adopting, and so we have a huge heart for just anybody that's kind of walking down that path. And there are just a lot of people in Midland that have a similar heart, and man, it's fun to be a part of this community.
Yeah. Well, Ray, thank you for walking us down that road and being vulnerable with sharing failures. Not everybody likes those. A lot of people want to hide those and just share the joys and the successes and the good things. But I really appreciate you sharing the failures and the setbacks.
Sure.
And I applaud you for where you are now, and look forward to hearing more great things. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Ray Belcher, everyone. Thanks for joining with us again for this episode. We'll want you to like, share, and subscribe on all of our platforms. Check us out at catwalkmediagroup.com, and we will see you next time.